Awesome. Well, good evening. I'm Jennifer Acey. I'm the mayor of Bernards Township. We are very excited that you all have joined us for the first ever World Kindness Day. We are going to record this amazing panel discussion, and I will be seated down here in the front. But to start off, I just wanted to give a little context as to why this started, how it started, and what else was a part of this, in addition to this amazing panel, from which we'll hear from this very diverse group of wonderful leaders within our community. So back in early February, I received a call from Jennifer De Silva, who had said, as a member of the Basking Ridge Business Alliance, she's like, there's this thing called Kindness Week. Would the town be interested in doing something like that? And based on the timing, it was a little tight to pull it off. And so I just Googled and looked to see if, there's World Kindness Day in November. I didn't put a lot around election and the day together. That really wasn't any forethought. It was just more of the fact that it's in November and we have time to think about it. And then as we started to talk about ideas, that's when we said, how about we collaborate with the Basking Ridge Business Alliance and think about involving additional businesses within our community to participate. And so that's started there. As a result, we had 7 very generous businesses that helped to create products that are in support of World Kindness Day awareness for our community. And as an added bonus, all of the business owners agreed to donate a profit to a wonderful nonprofit within our community, Parents for Exceptional Children. So it's just goodness all around. And I wanted to acknowledge those 7 businesses. Some of the business owners are here. And again, I want to recognize and express our deep gratitude to the Basking Ridge Business Alliance leadership, who are also here, and to thank them and their members. And this includes Barrister Coffee House. So they had donations today for coffee items. Create Studios, and over here on my left, a little bit like Vanna, Kristen Gannon from Create Studios had this kit. My daughter and I made this. So again, thank you to her. Jennifer De Silva, she had De Silva lining promo. So this is the shirt that I'm wearing that says Kindness Lives in Bernards Township. And she also had signs, which I didn't bring it, it's in my front yard. We have Mahara by Bushra, and we have these lovely handmade items that are also in Bernards Township colors that she created on behalf of this benefit. Also, Sugaries. So Salima will be coming, and she makes amazing desserts, and again was generously donating profits. The Mira Shop. So Farheen does amazing work. This is really awesome jewelry that has a great cause as well. And last but not least, the Washington House restaurant. They provided benefits from desserts that were purchased today. So I can say that I got around to all of those businesses. Don't tell my husband. He'll see it on the credit card. Anyway. But again, it's because of the wonderful community and the businesses within the community and the hearts of those business owners that were generous to give to an amazing organization, Parents for Exceptional Children. So that is the how we got here and why we're doing it. So bringing it full circle here on World Kindness Day, what we wanted to do in our community is we wanted to talk about kindness and to ask representatives from a diverse background how they define it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move down to the lower table, and I'm going to serve as a moderator for our esteemed colleagues, and we will start. So what we're going to do is we have our 6 amazing panelists. What I would like to have them initially start with is to share a brief introduction of themselves and the organization that they represent within our community. Dr. Chaudhry, would you like to start, please?
Sure. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the Basking Ridge Business Alliance and our Honorable Mayor for taking this initiative to bring people together to talk about kindness. We all assume that we have to live in relationship with people and we must be kind. So let me first introduce myself, and then I will say a few words about kindness from the Islamic perspective. My name is Dr. Muhammad Ali Chaudhry, and I am thankful to Mayor Asi and in including me in this panel. And being president of the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge, it is my honor to share with you what our organization as a part of this community does. Islamic Society of Basking Ridge was established in February of 2011. And over the years, we have worked very hard and finally got to a point of building our own mosque. So where we can pray, and for the last 2 years, on a temporary occupancy basis, we've been able to offer our services and serve our community. Just so that people understand what the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge is about, I'd just like to share its mission with everyone. Islamic Society of Basking Ridge is dedicated to providing Islamic, religious, educational, cultural, and social services to Muslims living in Basking Ridge or working in the Somerset Hills area and in any of the surrounding areas. Providing these services in an open, diverse, inclusive, and moderate environment. And I'd like to underline the word moderate in the sense that we truly believe that in our faith, in how we live our lives and how we work with others, there are no extremes. We must follow the middle path. And therefore, moderation in all of our actions is critical to us. And we teach our children that in our Islamic school programs and anything that we do. We also believe very strongly in promoting interfaith and intra-faith dialogue in order to improve relations between Muslims and peoples of other faiths. And as Mayor Asi is well aware that we've had a very active participation in the interfaith Thanksgiving service, and there's one coming up again this year that we will be participating in. It is very important for us to understand that each one of us as an individual, within our own families, within our own communities, we need to respect others. We must acknowledge the dignity of every individual, and therefore most of our programs are designed to do that, teaching our children those values and making sure that not only should they be proud to be Muslims, but they should be proud to be Americans. As American citizens, we have all responsibilities to our communities, and that's very important for us to live those values. The next question was, how do we define kindness? So you want just do the
May we do
introduction
introductions and introductions of yourself and your organization?
So for the organization, as I just read the mission to you, and now I should be very candid, because if I would be less than candid if I didn't mention the fact that the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge had a challenge when we tried to build a mosque. But I have to tell you this, that despite that challenge, we struggled through everything according to whatever was required to meet the process requirements. But I maintained the position throughout that struggle that whether people supported us or opposed us, we were all open. Our doors are always going to be open as long as you're willing to work with us. And despite that opposition, I can now tell you that two things. That having come to Basking Ridge in 1977, that's 47 years ago, when the town was about population was about 12,000 people. We are now more than double that now. Obviously, our demographics have changed. So as a result, there have been a lot of changes. And that also brought challenges. And part of the challenge that we faced was perhaps people being unaware of who Muslims are, what Islam is. And therefore, we faced that opposition. But in the interest of time, I would just like to share this with you. That now that we've built our mosque, our neighbor who had originally opposed us sent me a picture of the mosque from his house a few months ago. We were at a beautiful sunset, and he took a picture of our mosque and said, Dr. Chaudhry, you may like this. Our second neighbor, on the other side, the same thing. I just had, about 3 weeks ago, sat down and had tea in their house with the couple, talking about all the things that are concerning all of us. So my point is that if we all are open to that attitude, that working with our neighbors as friends and supporters of each other, things work out. And we are thankful also, and I must say this, that the professional staff of the township was extremely professional in dealing with all of our requirements. Of course, we met all of the necessary zoning requirements and everything that needed to be done. But in terms of getting the work done and building the mosque and now opening it for services, and just this last week, we got permission to actually use the basement, which is a big help to us because our Sunday school now requires more space. So I really want to thank the professional staff of the township, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, for their cooperation in getting everything done on time so that we could do what we as a community need to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim, you wear many hats. If you can speak about the Men of Charity.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Fody. I'm here to talk about the St. James Men of Charity. I moved to Basking Ridge with my wife back in 1981. I've got 3 children. James is my middle son. He's with us, and also a member of the Men of Charity. And Keith and Fred also are part of the Men of Charity group. The organization was formed back in 2007. That's when a number of men at St. James wanted to approach Father Glenn, who was our pastor at the time, to see if we could start a new ministry at St. James. It would be a group of men whose purpose was to just help people. We came from another organization that did a lot of charity work, but it was kind of bogged down with a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of restrictions and things that we weren't necessarily interested in. So we wanted to form our own group, and there was 12 of us men. That number is coincidental, if you know what I mean. But we took him out to dinner and made our case, and he thought it was a great idea, and he gave us his blessing, literally, and so we started to do good works. And the type of work that we do, I'll get into a little bit later, but I did want to also read our mission statement, if I could. And here it is. In response to God's love for us, we are empowered to be active members of the body of Christ through obedience to His church, promotion of its teachings, prayer for its members, and acts of charity. And our motto is Deus Caritas Est, which translates to God is love. So that's the foundation. And we actually use the, I know there's probably a lot of scripture and stuff in this, but it's, this is how I want to kind of communicate, where we are. We use the Corporal Works of Mercy as some of the guidelines as to what type of work we want to do. And those that I'll quickly mention, there's 7 of them. To feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, visit the sick, visit the imprisoned, and bury the dead. So these are the traditional 7 corporal works of mercy. The group of men that are part of this organization are amazing. We just finished our 13th annual Harvest Fest. And I think there's probably about 30, 35 active men in our organization. And everyone rolls up their sleeves and really work very hard at these events. We do other things as well to raise money. But it's important that some of our fundraisers are in-person type of events. We think the fellowship is important, and also we're of the firm belief that if you want to promote doing charitable work, if you want to promote kindness, then you want to be an example of that. So by getting together in person at these fundraising events, the people know what we do. We kind of promote the types of work that we do. And the goal is that when people leave after having a night of fun, that they are inspired, and that they see that here's a group of men that work very hard. It's hard work, but it's also a lot of fun. So it's we don't mind enjoying ourselves as we do this type of work. But we hope that people become inspired and feel like when they have an opportunity that they in turn would also be kind to people and perform works of charity.
Awesome, thank you. Ron?
So it's difficult to speak after Dr. Ali and Jim, but I'll be short and sweet. So.
And just make sure you speak into the mic.
Oh, okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I would like to thank the mayor for inviting me. I'm honored to be part of this panel with wonderful leaders in the township. My name is Rana Ghaffar, and as many women in this room do, we wear many hats. So today I'm here representing the BRBA. Basking Ridge Business Alliance is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing opportunities of networking to our local business owners, making sure that they are not just informed but deeply connected to the community. I've been a member of the BRBA. This is my 2nd year. I'm serving on the board, and it's been a very nice journey. I got the opportunity to network with other local business owners, and within the 2 years I managed to make new friends as well from our neighbors in the town. I'm as well, my 2nd hat is I'm the owner and lead designer for RG Interiors, your one-stop shop for all your interior needs. And my 3rd hat is being a wife and a mom. So I moved to Basking Ridge in 2017 from Dubai with my husband Omar, who works for Novartis, and that's the reason why I'm moving many countries, but finally we're settled here for some time. I have 2 kids. My son is a freshman at Rutgers, and my daughter is a sophomore at Ridge High School. Thank you.
Dennis.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Jones. Special order thanks to Mayor Acey for your visionary leadership and for making this whole event happen. And big thanks to the Basking Ridge Business Alliance for your leadership, and all my fellow panelists for caring about this topic in a world that can often feel a little rough around the edges. That we try to push back against that and be people of love and commitment to our neighbor and kindness. I have kind of a fun story. I grew up here in Bernards Township. my family, when I was quite young, moved here in the mid-1960s. And we lived on Lake Road. I was in the middle of a large family. And I grew up in the Catholic Church at St. James. And then a bit later in my journey, through some friends, was drawn into the life of the Basking Ridge Presbyterian Church. I came as a stranger. They welcomed me as a friend with kindness and expressions of God's love. We went on a high school summer mission trip to Maine that summer. Some of you know of those trips. Some of you with other faith communities have perhaps been on some of those trips. And it changed the trajectory of my life. Following college, I served Bernards Township as a police officer with the Bernards Township Police for 3 years, and then accepted a call from God to seminary, and have been a pastor ever since, these most recent 15 years at Basking Ridge Presbyterian Church. Our congregation is humbled and grateful to be the first faith community in our town. We were formed in 1717, back when there was a beautiful oak tree that was about 300 years old, and there wasn't really anything else that could be seen. And this log cabin meeting house was built, and beside that oak tree, in the shade of its leaves and its branches, and the town grew up around both that church and that beautiful tree. And I'm grateful for the growth, the increased diversity that is present in our community. When I graduated from Ridge High School in 1980, my memory at least is that you could count on one hand folks who were of other ethnic backgrounds or other faith traditions than the one that I came from. And I find it an inspiring thing to see such increased richness and diversity. Our congregation cares deeply about ministering to the community, about embodying God's love for the least, the lost, the last, and being a place of hospitality, a safe harbor. I also just want to give a shout out to my family. I'm very blessed to have a daughter who graduated from Ridge High School, class of 2024, just a few months ago, and is a first-year college student, and my wife Emily, who is a teacher at the Cedar Hill School and is a great gift to our community. So, thanks.
Thank you. Lindsay.
Hi. Let me do the mic closer. Thank you so much for including me on this panel. I can't even believe I'm on this panel with all of you. I also wear many hats, and tonight I'm representing Parents for Exceptional Children. I'm one of the co-presidents of PEC, PEC, whatever you'd like to call it, all the same organization. Many different acronyms, right? Is that the term? But all the same. So Parents for Exceptional Children is a group. It's a nonprofit that's been around for years. It was started back in the 1980s, and by a group of local moms who were really kind of pioneers with starting something like this. And they started it as a support group, and it evolved over the years. In the 90s, the more advocacy-focused group, the subgroup that's now referred to as Bernards CPAC, which is Special Education Parent Advisory Council. That group now works hand in hand with PEC. PEC became a 501c3 back in the 90s and has continued to evolve since. Most of the reason that it has grown and the organizations continue to flourish is because of the kindness and selflessness of the parent volunteers that we have. So many of us are involved because we want to pay it forward, because we got so much out of PEC that then we were inclined to devote our time and help other families that were starting the journey. So I kind of skipped over PEC, what it is. The organization itself is for families whose children struggle in one way or another. Originally, back in the 80s, it was for more disabled children who weren't able to participate in mainstream activities. You know, there was nothing at the YMCA, there were no adaptive classes in the 80s. And so over time, as we've seen inclusion incorporate these children into the school-based activities that are offered through the PTOs and whatnot, we don't have to subsidize and provide as many programs as had to be back then, because there are those opportunities for inclusion today. And the mission of the Bernards PEC is to provide the support that families, educators, and our community organizations need to help individuals with disabilities reach their full potential. So we are at all 6 district schools. We're not a PTO that's only at one school. We do represent and support all families at all 6 district schools. And the mission we provide of providing the support that our families need, we accomplish this through programs that we offer, through events and different educational opportunities, as well as to the community at large. You don't have to, it's not a PTO that requires dues or anything like that. If there is something that's of interest to you, please come, please join us. And that's how I think that outreach is how we've gotten to be the size that we are with the volunteerism from all of the parents over the years. And personally, I have 3 boys, 11, 8, and 5. I know your wife. Now, once you said Cedar Hill teacher, I was like, oh boy, I might be seeing her tomorrow at conferences. So, but I have 3 boys. Life is fun with 3 young boys, and to say the least. And I've been in Basking Ridge since my husband and I got married, and couldn't be happier that we happened to land here because of the supportive community in every different way that's being highlighted tonight.
Thank you. I think you'll see a theme with all of our panelists. They're all very humble. And for instance, Lindsay omitted that she and Bridget single-handedly pulled off the PEC Run With Me 5K, where they generously raised over $25,000 and donated that to Our House, which is a nonprofit that provides housing for special needs adults. So Lindsay and Bridget ran around that day, very busy, and recreated a 5K that was successful, but did it in a new venue and was tremendously successful. So again, an amazing panel. Last but not least.
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Mayor Acey. Thank you very much for putting this panel together, and it's an honor to be sitting here with everyone tonight. My name is Mendel Shemtov. I'm a rabbi here in town for just over 10 years. I got 3 boys, just had a baby girl about a month ago. And this town is filled with really beautiful people from all walks of life. And our Chabad Center up the road on the corner of Valley or Stonehouse, right across from Back to Nature is usually where I describe it. It's we just finished making expansion. We're a full-service Jewish facility, anything you would imagine: life cycle events, synagogue, Sunday school, and what we're focusing on here tonight is being there for people in whatever way we can be. There's the conventional ways and also unconventional ways, as that's what it's really all about. So I'll end with, let's look forward to the next panel, the next questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I want to thank each of our panelists for your graciousness in sharing yourself and your organization and the topic that we're about to discuss. Just as a brief refresh, World Kindness Day was started actually in 1998 by a coalition of worldwide kindness organizations. And the goal was really to encourage individuals and communities to prioritize kindness and goodwill. And so when Jennifer had suggested kindness back in February, I'm like, that fits perfectly with Bernards Township. I found it in the 17 years I've lived in our community to be very profusive of very generous and kind people. But I think especially sometimes in times of turmoil and potentially where groups want to divide us, I think it's a wonderful time to take a moment and a pause and reflect and discuss with people from very different backgrounds the same topic, and to get that perspective as to what we see and what we'd like to see within our wonderful community. So with that, the panelists know the questions I'm going to ask. So to mix it up, I'm going to ask each of them to define kindness, how they individually define kindness, either by themselves or their organization. So let's start with Dennis.
I would share that my Christian theology of kindness is that kindness is an outer expression of an inner reality. If your kindness is just good, warm fuzzies, good feelings that you have right here, then maybe that's something other than kindness. It's a great start. But as I understand it, and as the tradition that I'm a part of understands it, it's a outer expression of that inner reality. It's not just something that is present in your heart. Kindness is something that is lived out by the words you speak, the work of your hands, and the places your feet take you. I would add to that kindness is also a commitment to the common good. It's an awareness that no person is an island. We are all connected. Your oppression is my oppression. Your wound or trauma is my wound or trauma. And anything that I can do to ease that trauma or that wound or that oppression, to bring hope and love to you, to bring kindness to you, blesses and strengthens the community as a whole.
Thank you. Rana.
So for me, I define kindness by two words: being a giver and being inclusive. So being a giver for me is to help, support a friend, a family member, a colleague, a neighbor, someone that needs help and support at a certain time, and you're not waiting for anything in return or expecting anything. You're just being there for them. And for me as well, being kind is being inclusive. So you're creating environment where everyone is feeling welcomed, valued, respected, regardless of their religion, culture, or personal history. And I see that this is very well established in the BRBA. We have a diverse range of local businesses from doing different stuff, different backgrounds. It's always fun in the monthly meetings that we meet and we learn about what each culture is celebrating this month. So it's fun. And we are very supportive to each other. So in the local businesses, we try as much as possible to support each other in any way we can.
Thank you. Lindsay.
So Dennis stole my answer. But I do agree that it's something that starts internally and is pushed outward. And one of the things that I think of is empathy. That is what drives so many people to be kind, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, being able to see when someone needs to be lifted up or may need a helping hand. That is a lot of the drive I find, or I feel like, for what makes people do kindness acts, random acts of kindness, whether it simply be smiling at a stranger, holding the door for someone, waving, as you drive past someone who you might not even know or realize after you drive past them you didn't know them. But doing all of those things can all be considered being kind in addition to the larger things that people may consider to be more obvious acts of kindness, with donating to a charity or volunteering your time. But it doesn't have to be big like that. It can be small and take even just a few seconds.
Thank you. Jim?
In thinking about how to discuss this part of the conversation, I was reminded of the parable of the Good Samaritan, which was told by Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. And that parable, I think, conveys a very powerful message about compassion and kindness, and the definition of what a neighbor is. Those of you, I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with this story, but it's about a story of a man who was beaten and left for dead on the side of the road. And a number of people had passed him by. However, a Samaritan, who was somebody who probably was not considered he was considered an outsider, an enemy of the people that Jesus was actually talking to. And I think that was his point, that compassion should extend beyond cultural and religious and social boundaries. And it emphasizes that true neighborliness is defined by actions of mercy and kindness towards anyone in need. I know for the Men of Charity, we get a lot of requests for people who are in need. They do get vetted to make sure it's a legitimate request, but we never ask them what their religious background is or whatever. We try to do as much as we can locally. We think that is should be our focus, but to us, we just and I think the men who are part of the Men of Charity, I think it's clear, at least in my mind, that they have actually a need to do this type of work, which I don't think is unusual, but I just wanted to mention that because we find it a blessing to ourselves that we can actually do this for people. Doing this since 2008, oftentimes we would go and whether it's delivering a check to pay a medical bill or a person's rent, or the person needs to have their car repaired, and to actually spend some time with these people, it's so fulfilling. It's brought me to tears more than once to just see the life and the joy that we're creating, and it's a very nice feeling to have.
Thank you. Rabbi?
So when I think of kindness, I think of it as rising above our instinctive self. What do I mean by this? Is that many times the focus is on the receiver. But I'll give you a little insight into the way Judaism views the mechanics of what's going on inside of us when, on the subconscious level, is we all have two parts of ourselves. We have our instinctive side, which is not bad, but focuses on self-preservation and doing what gets us by. Then we have our altruistic side, which strives for something higher, to be part of something greater. And these two are not inherently at odds, because one could do something with ostensibly as a kindness, but it's to move forward a selfish motive. But true kindness is really tapping into our deepest self, our altruistic side, which we believe everyone at the core is good. And to tap into that when we can, and to be there for somebody else in the way that they need. This starts with empathy and listening, and really tapping into somebody else and connecting on a deeper soul level with any other person, whoever they may be. So that's what comes to mind when I hear the word kindness.
Thank you. Dr. Chaudhry.
Well, I would subscribe to the definition that Rana gave. I would add to that, however, from the Islamic perspective, that being kind, being generous, being helpful to others, as a human being, you gain something from doing so. Therefore, for your own salvation and for your own happiness, giving is better than taking. So one of the so when I was asked for this, I was thinking about this question. I asked our Imam to look for verses in the Quran that talk about kindness, and he came up with so many that I would take probably an hour to go over. So I will just share with you basically the concept of, when God talks about human beings, he says clearly, there's a verse in the Quran that clearly says, and I will just read one verse in Arabic and then I'll just read the translation. Allahu latifu bi ibadihi yarzuqu man yasha'u wa huwal qawiyyul aziz. That God is gentle with his servants. God is service with his creation, all that he created. Okay. We also learned so many examples in the Quran about how it is incumbent upon us to reach out to others, people who are around us. Prophet Muhammad, for example, emphasized the importance of taking care of your neighbor, always looking out. He said that you are not a good Muslim if you go to bed with a full stomach when you know that your neighbor hasn't eaten, that your neighbor is hungry. And then somebody asked him, who's my neighbor? So the Prophet said, 40 houses to your right, 40 to the left, 40 in front of you, and 40 behind you. In other words, the entire community you should care about. So also, I think there is an example of a servant of the Prophet who said that he worked for the Prophet for 10 years. In all this time, he never even said oof to him. He was never displeased with him. He always appreciated the help that he gave him and the work that he did for him. So to me, I will sum up with this. It's something that I've been working on for the last several years. In 2015, came up with the idea of standing up for the other. Kindness really means that if you find people who are being denigrated by others, stand up for them. That to me is the greatest form of kindness, is to speak up when we find bigotry, when we find hate against others. Regardless of what you look like, what your faith is, we are all entitled to dignity. And that's how God created us, and I think each one of us have that responsibility to be kind. And one last thing, that in Islam, one of the lessons we teach our children, and one of the lessons we've learned is that even a smile is considered a form of charity. That you don't have to give up much when you do this. And I remember a vice president of AT&T many years ago, a resident of Basking Ridge, was the head of human resources, walked into our AT&T building with me, and he smiled at this lady. And she was very happy. She said, "Thank you so much, Mr. Berlinger." Well, that was his name. So afterwards I asked him. So he said, a smile didn't cost me anything. So that's another. Being kind to others doesn't cost you anything. You really can give a lot without expecting something in return.
Great, thank you. So you can see that we all have different views, and we've been in town for different time periods. So I'm interested in the next question. Rabbi, I'll ask you to go first. How do you see kindness in Bernards Township?
I see it in the way that there's a huge lack of unkindness, in that whoever I meet and whoever I see, I interact with, I think overall as a town, is full of kindness in every area, and many of the aspects that many of us mentioned in being the neighbors, respecting our neighbors, really caring for our neighbors is something that's really beautiful, and I think this town really exemplifies it, from the bottom to top, everywhere, from the leadership to the residents. It's something that's really felt deeply, and I think the more of it that exists, the more that goes around. And it's something very special and something that we should cherish and constantly work on. As humans, we're not stagnant, we're always moving. And the more we emphasize to double down and to keep on focusing on it, we'll be an even better town than we are today.
Thank you. Lindsay?
So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can see kindness in Basking Ridge, which is amazing. I think one of the things that at least is obvious to me, whether it be from volunteering for PEC or having younger children, really teaching the young population by example. And you can see that in so many different ways. Personally, I grew up with a mom who emphasized kindness, and even she told my children there are three rules in life: be kind, be kind, be kind. And I think that starting young, whether you're telling children about kindness, whether you're showing them kindness by as a parent dropping what you're doing and going to help your friend in need, those are the things that I think create habits and how you can learn and see firsthand situations. But in our schools, a lot of the conversation in elementary, at least, is about empathy, is about kindness, is about inclusion, is about just simply being a nice individual that says, hi, can I help you, rather than turning your back to them. And I think that then when you look at our community, you see a place like Barrister. And while they have wonderful coffee, I don't think that that is what has made them as wildly popular. I think their mission to pay it forward and to help others in need is such an amazing example. And with them having a child in elementary school, kids who know that child, then know of the business. So it can really spread like wildfire, not to be talking about fires, but it can, a little spark like that can just continue to spread and end up reaching so much further than where it originally started. And I think that is probably a large part of where you see the kindness in Basking Ridge just spread. And by having it in all of these different places, it's able to touch families and adults and children and all the different populations so that we really see it across the board.
Thank you. Dr. Chaudhry?
I would add to that in the sense that as I mentioned, the township has changed. Demographics have changed. And therefore, because of the diversity of the population, the experiences that we are now seeing differ quite a bit from what I started out with when I first came. And having been in public service, serving the Board of Education for 6 years, and getting to know the community, learning about what was important to the parents as well as the children, and then also serving in the township committee for 6 years and serving as mayor about 20 years ago. I have seen changes occur, but I think in the end, the township has been able to, and the community has grown in such a way that we have still maintained our character as a great place to live and work. And I wish that we would do more of what we do tonight. Having these conversations with each other from different backgrounds, I think opens our eyes to things that we may not have thought about. And I remember actually 20 years ago, I did suggest that we ought to meet the school board, the head of the YMCA, heads of the churches, and the mayor should meet at least once a quarter. And I think this idea of coming together, getting to know and hearing from others is very, very important. So what I see is a very positive approach to how we as a community live and support each other. And especially our young people who are growing up in schools, going through difficulties. I would be less than candid if we didn't acknowledge the fact that yes, we do have bullying problems at school. Children are suffering from some of those issues, right? So the organizations like PEC and others are coming together to work with the school board, with the staff itself, to make sure that we are there to support them. And I think each one of our communities has that obligation. And I do feel that we are, as I said, a wonderful community to live in, but we need to work together to continue to challenge these negative influences that also come in, unfortunately.
Thank you. Jim?
Personally, I see kindness in Baskin Ridge everywhere. I get pretty much involved in a lot of things in town, and just looking down the road here and here, there, I see a lot of kindness. Been to the menorah lighting the last 2 years, and seen the rabbi and a couple other events, and that was a great event, and the kids were having a lot of fun, a lot of kindness going on. PEC, wasn't really familiar with the organization not until this year, but we were very happy to support what you're doing, and even stopped in to say hi that day. God's Co-op Food Pantry. You just get close to that building, and whoever you run in is, you're going to see some kindness. The BRBA and Rana actually inviting us to come to the Crescent lighting, which we did, James and I. First time we were in a mosque, and people were very kind. So I think I just see it everywhere in Baskin Ridge.
Thank you. Dennis?
I'm so struck tonight as we're all sharing of all the things we could be investing time and energy into tonight, many of which would not be productive, many of which would not be building up the body, strengthening us as a community. This is strengthening us. This is building us up. I'm struck by how in life we often see whatever it is we're looking for. If I leave the house thinking, you know what, there's just a bunch of jerks in my neighborhood. Well, I'm going to look for evidence to prove that theory of mine. Whatever we give oxygen to, it grows. And I'm so grateful for this encouragement that we're all giving and receiving tonight to give kindness, love, building up our community, oxygen. Where do I see kindness very, very briefly here in our wonderful town? When I was a member of the police department, I was so grateful to be part of this group where everybody went above and beyond the call of duty. It was a true vocation, it was a calling. And a few of us on the department had a sort of a special pride in forming a relationship with the folks at the Old Mill Inn, where whenever there might be a person without a home who landed in our community and needed a place to stay, and there weren't a lot of options for where we might bring them other than just bring them to the town line and let them be someone else's problem, and just sort of turn our back on their need. That we convinced the management of that hotel. There might have been another one close by in that era, in the 1980s, and to give them a free room. And it gave us such joy to have that connection, and that we found someone who was so rock bottom and didn't think anyone would care about them, that we'd be able to extend grace and kindness in that way. I think about my own family in the 15 plus years that we've been back in town as active people. there have been moments where each one of us needed an ambulance, and they were volunteers who came. An injury, an illness, some other, an accident, some other unexpected thing happening. I sometimes feel impervious to those kinds of things, but then I remember, well, gosh, wow, I needed that ambulance once, and how humbling and frightening that can be, but also how reassuring it is when volunteer first aiders are there in about 2 minutes, and the police are there so quickly behind them. I see kindness in faith communities, all of them, where love and welcome is extended, and in the broader community where ethnic and political and religious diversity is celebrated. It's something that is seen as enriching us, and where friendships and alliances are formed, which deepen all of our lives in the midst of those differences.
Thank you. And Rana?
So before going to my answer that I have in mind, I see kindness today because on the personal level, I have a friend, colleague, and neighbors that came out just to support me today. So this is an act of kindness that I really appreciate on the personal level. Back to the original question and my answer, since I defined at the beginning kindness like being a giver and being inclusive, I give examples of how I see this in the township. So being a giver, I'm a member of a local Facebook group and another WhatsApp group. And both of them, they support everyone. So on those groups, if someone posted just a post, maybe they're sick, they need help, or they just started a new business. If you don't come back and if you don't check the post at the same moment, by the end of the day, that person got the help that they need. If this person opened a new business, by the end of the day, someone just placed an order to support them. So this is very kind, very generous of our township. So I see this daily in my daily life. Being inclusive, to give an example, to be precise, is our school calendar. So if you look at our school calendars and the holidays that we take, we're taking Christmas holiday, we're taking Rosh Hashanah, we're taking Diwali, we're taking Easter, and in the coming years we're taking Eid. So I see this very, very inclusive for everyone, for all the students, and it gives the chance as well to the students to learn about other people's backgrounds and cultures, and that I have a colleague celebrating something today and I have to call him up and just wish him whatever I'm supposed to wish, and I can ask. Like sometimes I'm originally from Egypt, lived in Dubai, Kuwait, and here, so through all my life, I've dealt with different cultures, different people from different backgrounds, so I can say I'm a bit well-diverse about different cultures, but I always tell my kids, if you don't know, ask. So today, I remember when I first met my first Indian colleague, I told her, so what do you say? Do I tell you Happy Diwali, or what do I tell? So I'm happy to see this in our school calendar because that's how we're raising the future neighbors, colleagues in our community.
Thank you. So I think we all agree that kindness is prevalent in Bernards Township, which is wonderful. But as thinking forward, how would we like to see it? Is there additional things that we could think of beyond what we currently see? So putting you on the hot spot, Jim, we'll start with you.
This probably is the most difficult question, and I know you had given us what the questions were going to be. And I'm not so sure how I would want to answer that, because I just kind of reported that I see it all the time. So to now say I'd like to see it to be different, it just didn't, resonate with me. You see it in the people. I think maybe people are, I don't know why, I might be making this up, I don't know. People seem to be more kind in the morning.
After coffee.
Yeah, definitely after coffee, not before, not early in the morning.
If I were to go to one of the parks, and walk around the park, if it's in the morning, everyone that you pass is good morning, good morning. Later in the day, they don't, everyone doesn't say that. But it's just, I guess I would like to see it continue would be the way I would want to answer this. Because I see it, maybe I look for it, I don't know, but I see it, and I want to continue to be able to witness the kindness that I am seeing now.
Thank you. Rabbi?
I touched upon it before. I would definitely echo what Jim said. I think there's really something special here. I speak to colleagues in other communities, and mentioned a few ways it's being expressed in the town. It's to continue and to be conscious of it is really an important point. Is that we shouldn't take it for granted, because when we take things for granted, that's when they slip away. In the same way where we've made efforts and continue to make efforts to be good neighbors, good friends to everybody, to whoever they are, whatever background they come from, is an essential part of a strong, healthy community, which everyone benefits. So I would just, echoing what Jim said, to continue what we're on. I think tonight, as Dr. Chaudhry mentioned, is a beautiful thing. This is a beautiful initiative. And to, whether we get together in person, which is always nice, or not, but to always keep this on the forefront of our consciousness, that this is a value to strive and shall be at the forefront of our minds.
Thank you. Dr. Chaudhry?
The only thing I could add to what we discussed earlier is to perhaps recognize acts of kindness during the year. So if we want to build up this momentum, to have some, perhaps on the website or some other means of recognizing acts of kindness that people are engaging in during the year. Perhaps, invite people to come to an event where people can share what others are doing. As the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge, for example, we've learned, just like all the churches and the synagogues have been involved, and in fact, I was at the groundbreaking of the Shabbat Center. I was there that year when that happened. And I've always remembered, the relationship that we had, with all the rabbis that have, come and gone. So I think getting to know others and getting to know what others are doing, it is perhaps sharing that information going forward basis would build up that spirit.
Thank you. Rana?
So wearing the BRBA hat, I'll say shop local. Be more kind and shop local. So if you haven't tried Salima's dessert stuff, you should. And I think she always brings a goodie bag. So if she has a goodie bag, then you'll be lucky enough to try her stuff. Okay, yeah. So I tell her it's so much fun to be her friend, but if I continue, like every time I see her, I'll just gaining calories. So, but you have to try it. If you haven't shopped from Farheen, she has a very beautiful jewelry collection. Be kind. Christmas is coming, holidays are coming, check her. If you haven't bought from Boshra, I highly recommend you use her services. Her stuff, you see here, she did those especially for the event, but she's very creative and can help you do anything that you want and come in mind. All of them, they are local women here. They live in town, they give extra help for anything, and they can come up with any ideas for you. And always check the BRBA website. We do have a wide range of local people, local businesses. If you're even looking, our website has our board members' emails there. Just drop us an email asking for what service you need, and we'll be more than happy to put you in contact with our local business owners. And on the personal thing and the mom hat, I'll say, building to what Lindsay had said, we educate the kids in the elementary school about kindness. But being with my kids in the high school, I can see that those kids, this age is critical. And I think we need to raise the awareness about being kind to other colleagues. Because boys and girls at that age, they pass through many stuff. Some of them become on the introvert side. Some of them, they are not easily communicating. And when I talk to my kids and be kind, if someone's sitting alone, he doesn't have a group of friends, invite him in. And then you hear those discussions about, we are a group, we can't let someone in, we can't do that. There are some kids, when prom comes up, they don't want to go because they don't have a group of friends. So I have witnessed this, and I can see that I have many people here that deal with kids from the religious perspective. So I'd like to promote that more to the high school kids, because for the elementary kids, they are awesome. So I think the older kids, they need this.
Thank you. Lindsay?
I think just continuing the conversation, whether it's doing events like this more often, but also continuing to evolve and elaborate on what we already have. I mean, we got to where we are today because of the growth over the last couple of years, more than the last couple of years, but over the years. And I think that when it comes to, for example, for PEC, over the summer, what PEC has sponsored what we refer to as sensitivity training for years now, which essentially was one day, an hour and a half, for a third grader and a sixth grader. And they were taught about different disabilities and just explaining how people think differently, speak differently, can act differently, share their emotions and communicate differently. So everyone could understand and then be kind, right? Because at the bottom of it, it's all about being kind to your neighbor and to the people around you. And over the summer, this was previously, it was only an hour and a half of a third grader's life and a sixth grader's life. So as we were saying, how when conversations like this are constantly had, it promotes that concept. And you're not thinking that everyone is a jerk, and you're staying with the positivity and riding that train. And so we had brought it, and the curriculum writing this summer that was done, they created a disability awareness curriculum. So now, instead of for an hour and a half, twice in your life, each month, students throughout all the elementary grades once a month will receive disability awareness lessons. Just basics of understanding how you think differently, act differently, communicate differently, process things differently, all of that. Just so that everyone can understand how people are different and how they can then connect with that person who may think or communicate differently, or how they can do something kind, or what would resonate with them. And I think, again, the more we can do at the younger grades to promote that and instill that concept of kindness, the better the community will be and will continue to evolve, and we'll be talking about more great things in years to come.
Awesome, thank you. Dennis?
Years ago, there was a fascinating study done in Princeton where they gathered some seminary students together, those who one would think would be among the kindest people. That would be the assumption, and these students did not know what they were participating in, and there was a brief reflection they experienced on that parable of the Good Samaritan that Jim shared with us about before, this story of a traveler from Jerusalem to Jericho getting beat up and robbed and left for dead on the side of the road, and someone stopping, someone who would have been viewed as less respected in that culture, stopped and saved that person's life. They gave a review of that famous parable, and then each one of them was given an assignment to head across campus to fulfill some errand, and with each one of them there was an actor who intercepted them on the way and presented themselves as a person in trouble, some crisis, collapsing on the ground, having a seizure, or a person with bags that had all been dropped, some really obvious situation in need. And the key difference that this study found, whether people stopped or not, was whether they were late to this place that they were supposed to get to. In some of the cases, they were intentionally given a time, hey, you've got about 5 minutes to get there, but it's really about a 15-minute walk. In other times, they needed amount of time to get there. And in every instance, the people who were in a rush, the people who were in a hurry, were less likely to be kind, were more likely to turn aside and just hustle on their way. Related to that, there's three ways that I'd love to see our incredible community grow in its kindness. Echoing your beautiful insights about the pressures our youth are in. As an expression of kindness to them and as a way of helping unleash their greater kindness to one another, I'd love to find ways to relieve and to lessen the academic and social pressures that all of our kids face, from elementary school to middle school. Holy cow, you couldn't pay me $1 million to be back in middle school again. And in high school, and and if you're not beautiful and an athlete and in the right crowd, may God give you grace and strength. So whatever ways we might be able to, and I don't know what that answer is, but that's one of my greatest prayers for our community, to find ways to lighten, to lessen the academic and the social pressures, to communicate to our sons and daughters more clearly that the grades they get, the teams they make, the other ways that they achieve are not the things that ultimately define who they are. Secondly, and I'm so grateful that Mayor Acey and others in our township leadership are concerned about this, find ways to nurture for our youth, really for all of us, but particularly for our youth, more face time with fellow human beings and less screen time. And I know, I love my Apple products. I love my iPhone. I would probably go into physical withdrawal if you took it away from me. But I know I am less kind to others. I'm less present to others when I'm worshiping the God of technology. And finally, a hope of mine as someone who often walks and bikes and motorcycles sometimes. A hope of mine would be that in driving our vehicles that are each year seems to be getting bigger and bigger, to drive our vehicles more mindfully, more carefully. I'm tempted sometimes when I'm out on the road to fall back into my Catholic heritage and say a few Hail Marys for my safety. So those would be just some of my hopes for this community that I love so much.
Thank you. In thinking of, expressing and showing kindness, I know when I'm under stress and in a hurry, whenever someone cuts me off or, in TSA, for instance, trying to board a plane and all that good stuff. And I just always try to reflect that, especially when someone is not kind to you first, in your reaction back to them, is you just don't know what they're dealing with, and to try to show them some grace that, perhaps they need it more than you do. Many folks know that recently I did my first marathon. It was an accident, it's a long story, but I did it. And I was so humbled by the intense humanity and kindness that 26.2 miles of people that had been out there for hours from all different backgrounds, all different countries, but yet they were all united in cheering on complete strangers and, often saying things that they didn't know how it impacted the person at the time, and they didn't know, having done it, of like, I really needed to hear that, or I needed to see that sign. I mean, let me just say the sign of that all toenails go to heaven. I now understand what that means. But there were a lot of other inspirational signs or sayings that people had that were really funny and brought levity to a time when you really wanted to give up. And so it's just something that was such an intense experience. And one of the reasons why I went forward with it when I had many, many doubts, it was a resident from Homestead Village, and she said, Jen, you've got to do it. It's like life-changing. So it's kind of like that was sort of kindness on steroids, if you will, in a very intense time when I needed to be receptive to it. And so again, it's such an honor to get to experience those types of things and within our community. I think it's important to take a pause and say, this is important. This may not be traditional, but it is important. And, you know, our community, I believe we're told we're the fourth hottest real estate market, right? So yes, great schools and things like that. But one of the reasons why people stay in our community, it's because of our people. Because they feel connected, they feel respected, they feel loved, they feel a part of something larger, not just a home ownership, not just a, you know, I'm a homeowner at this residence, you know, this is my address. And so whatever we can do to continue these types of efforts, that we are all connected, that's, I think, what our hope is. So again, I have tremendous gratitude to each and every one of you for sharing your stories and your information, for leading the organizations that you do in our community and making it better, and to our businesses who also generously created wonderful products for us to benefit Parents for Exceptional Children. So humbled and grateful. And I just hope that, you know, with this recording, for those that couldn't be here, that we can share with those, that they can get additional inspiration and ideas, and we'll look forward to the future. So does anyone, before we close, does anybody have anything else they'd like to say? That was not on the script.
Thank you.
Yes,
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you really for taking the leadership. And let's see if we can somehow get other agencies to work together. Because one of the things that we miss sometimes is that there's things happening in schools and other leadership organizations don't really know about that. We can pick up signals by talking to each other. So I think if we could have more of that conversation, that would be very helpful. I'm glad we actually, this is the first time I learned more about the work that you've been doing for so many years. I think it's important for us to have these conversations. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
On behalf of BRBA and the local businesses, I would like to thank the mayor. This year, it was my first year on the board. I got to invite the mayor to speak in one of our monthly meetings, and since then she has been amazing, just supporting every local business and trying to come up with ideas and how can we do more. And after this nice panel, and I get to know all those wonderful people, I think I'll invite them, like Jim, to the BRBA at some point. To connect with the local businesses, but like to add to Dr. Ali, I'd like to see that this event doesn't just end now. Like each one of us has a different point of view. They are all constructive. So I would like to see we do more and implement more in our township. So it's not just like one event we came and it's done. Thank you.
So then one last selfless plug. We do have, if people are feeling kind and generous, we do have Tap the Talent for boards and commissions within the community. So if you have any interest to share, that's something that it's towards the end of the year, and we're always looking for wonderful volunteers to help our community. And representation of everyone is very much valued, as well as skills and competencies. We're a very rich community of diverse and talented people. So I'll put in that shameless plug. So with that, I want to thank each and every one of you. And I think, Salima, you had some goodies that you're willing to share. So please, if you have any interest, and some of our other business owners may have some other things as well. So don't be shy, and thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.